Welcome to Life Her Podcast, the podcast that guides you from the 9-to-5 grind to the freedom of your own path. Discover how to conquer life's challenges while pursuing your passions with unwavering faith. Because being an entrepreneur is not easy. So let's get to it.
Hey everyone, I'm Yvette Lloyd, host of Life Her Podcast. Welcome back, and I appreciate you guys for listening and tuning in for all of the previous episodes. Today we have a very special guest who has worked in for thousands of people nationwide. Joining us, Dr. Lewis, also known as the Student Loan Doctor. She is the powerhouse behind the Student Loan Doctor LLC, the first Black woman owned student loan repayment company in the U.S. Dr. Lewis and her team have helped over 50,000 clients navigate and complex world of the student loan repayment, securing forgiveness for over 50 million in debt. So you guys know we need this whole conversation because Dr. Lewis is going to get us all together and give us all the information that we need to be able to get ahead in life and get out of debt. Okay. So, hey, Dr. Lewis, how are you?
Hey, glad to be here. I love the intro. I'm like, yes, let's get started.
Like, come through.
Yes, I'm happy.
Yes, I'm excited about this conversation because I am informed about student loans, and it's so crazy is I've had student loans too, and I got a forgiveness letter, but it ain't
Oh,
off my credit.
well, we could talk about that because that's a lot of people right now. It's a lot of things being held up. And one of them is the removal of it coming off of your credit. So we can get into that conversation for sure.
Yes. I'm excited. So tell me, what inspired you to start the Student Loan Doctor LLC, and how did it become your passion about helping people with their student loan debt?
Well, I was doing the work for years, and my professional background was that I was working for a college. My trajectory was to be a college president, and I was working with adult learners, and I was helping inform them on their education choices, understanding financial aid, career counseling, and so that was my world. And what happened in the middle of that is, I said, you know what, I was in my later 20s. I said, I gotta get my own self together because I was understanding how this thing was going to really impact me as I wanted to make bigger decisions like home buying, things of that nature in my 30s. So I took a financial literacy course at church, and I already had a lot of knowledge about student loans and the practices thereof because of my professional background. Well, long story short, here I am at this financial literacy course, and I'm telling people, the teacher's giving me the stage, mind you, and I'm supposed to be a participant. I'm like, well, here's what you do with your loans. So then after class, true story, people started kind of congregating in the hallway, and they wanted to ask me questions. Now, I believe in being a servant of the Lord, so I answered the questions.
I know that's right.
Next week, come back to class. Now, there's a line that's waiting after class. And I'm just giving you the cliff notes of this, but long story short, my finances were so jacked up at the time because it wasn't that I wasn't making money, I had a bad relationship with money, like robbing Peter to pay Paul, that I was on like a IOU promise to pay as I can for this program at the church. So I felt like the pastor was trying to use my gifts to make up for this lack of funding, you see? So he was like, well, if you could just help a few servants of the Lord just with their questions. Girl, look, it's people lined up to talk about loans. So I'm doing informal consultations. Okay. The following week, the line is outside the church around the corner. I said, now hold on. Now wait a minute. Now I'm gonna have to come up with this money because I don't think the Lord said to do this. So long story short, it got me thinking like this could be a business because I'm not foreign. I want to be clear when people hear what I say because somebody could be resonating with what I'm saying today. I always knew how to get some money now. Okay. I've been in sales.
Mhm.
I had a bad relationship with managing the money. So I don't miss no opportunity. So I was like, this might be a business. I'm like, if they would have paid me for 30 minutes, I just made it up. So I said, all right, I actually have started a business. And I said, if you guys want to book with me, you can book with me and meet me at the corner bakery. And if anybody listening knows, entrepreneurship starts at Panera Bread, Corner Bakery, Cozy, and Starbucks. Okay. Free Wi Fi, one cup of coffee. So people started meeting me there, and nobody missed their appointment. No one. And
Mm.
I think I was charging like 35 or $50 for the 30 minutes. And then I opened up my first little office location. And my office was the size of a closet. You just don't move too much. I just wanted to be professional. People start coming there. And then social media, long story short, in 2018, did this weird thing where like blew up my business. We posted how we were the first African American woman owned student loan repayment company in the country, and all the blogs ran with it. And that was a great hit. And then we were on every radio station, every TV, and then all this business has come in ever since. So just the power of podcast, press, media has been a game changer for us because it organically we were just saying how we help people. But that was the gist of it. I had to hire, scale, and now it's a seven-figure business. So I'm very, very grateful. I did not turn those people away after church. So
Wow, girl, that ain't nothing but a blessing. You hear me?
it has, yes. Now, and been again, in hindsight, who knows what's going on here? Because
For real. So as the first Black woman owned student loan repayment company, what does this milestone mean to you, and how has it shaped your mission?
well, well, what exact milestone? Which one are you referring to? Because I want to make sure I hit the question right. Because I've got a few in my head I'm thinking of. Which one are you referring to?
Girl, all of them.
Well, I think for me, I knew when I was working that I, I knew that there were going to be limits placed on top of me because I always outworked, outthought, out. And those people really need to be entrepreneurs because you're always 10 steps ahead of the problem, but you're not being paid enough. Or you're willing to take care of somebody else's business like it's your business, but you're not being paid enough. And I like money. So I
Mhm.
knew back then, I was like, yeah, this ain't gonna work too long. I ain't gonna be working too much. I already knew, but I didn't know how I was going to become an entrepreneur. Now that I'm, been a successful entrepreneur now, it's going on 9 years. It just seems like two different worlds. Because I don't even know what it would be like to work for anyone at this point. Like I have people working for me and I delegate out and then
Right.
the freedom that can come with entrepreneurship is amazing, but also the burden. Nobody talks about that part. I have a staff, they eat before I eat, literally and figuratively. So I think that we always glorify entrepreneurship and side hustles and so forth. It's real cute until your hustle is no longer a hustle. Because I'm gonna be honest with you, I just thought this was gonna be a cute little hustle. You see what I'm saying? For
Mhm.
my shopping habits, pay off my credit cards. I had a vision. But God said go bigger. And what am I gonna tell him? No, like it just happened literally overnight at that time in 2018. So being at this place now, very seasoned, like very demure, very mindful, I feel very relaxed in my role because um, there's a certain type of faith you have as an entrepreneur. There's a lot of roller coasters that that
Yeah.
you're given when you start a business. And I've been through the most of them, and to still be in my right mind and still be joyful, I think we're doing all right. Because I'll tell you right now, some years I was like, God, why would you want this for your child? But we do really good work. So that's what keeps me fueled every day to get up and keep going at it.
Wow. So, can you break down some of the recent changes in student loan policies and what they mean for borrowers and especially those with high debt burdens?
Yeah. So I mean, we can help anyone. The person we recently got forgiven had about 970,000 student loans.
What?
Yeah, so they had like multiple doctoral degrees, compound interest. We don't judge anybody because you never know what somebody got going on. Nobody
Mhm.
looks like what they're going through with their student loans and their credit. So we just take everybody as they are. So when somebody has like 100,000, I'm like, oh, pooey, we got you. So long story short, sometimes a person just needs more money, very honestly, because if they're not in a field in which they can get forgiven, then we're talking about how do we get this paid off and how do we do this strategically and wisely, right? That's one element of things. And then the other part of it is, well, okay, well, if you do work in a field, like a public service loan forgiveness field, like education, government, not for profit, how do we strategically keep you working in that field, so that you're able to get your loans forgiven? Or do you start your own nonprofit? Make sure you put all those, criteria in place that they ask for, and then get your loans forgiven that way. I say all that to say that right now, this is probably like the best season to really consider and be informed about loan forgiveness, because okay, so right here we're at today. It's the eve of election, right? I know it by the time people listen to this, let's speak to that. So if you're listening to this and Kamala, Vice President Kamala was elected, right? So what we can expect is continued loan forgiveness initiatives to be employed. And it's just Congress can hold up some things too. So it's not all the administration's responsibility. Okay, now if Trump is elected, well, then we can see some things being reversed, engineered. Some things can be taken away, backdated. And it just isn't a cute scene at that point. I'm just being honest. So I've lived through a Trump era, and one of the things they did when he was elected, there a lot of permissions were taken away. Some loan forgiveness programs were scaled back. So we'll see. But if we're
Mhm.
talking about today, and hopefully by the time everyone listens to this, there's certain programs that were passed through the Department of Education, um, years ago, 1965. Um, what I'm discussing with you would be something like the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program, which was modified more recently. Borrower's defense. Did you go to a school, a for profit school, that was found guilty of some illegal or janky practices? You might get your loans discharged. Are you a teacher? Teacher loan forgiveness. Do you have a disability? Just because you don't have a visible disability doesn't mean you may not have one that could qualify for loan forgiveness under the total permanent discharge. So we see that one very, very common, because I'm gonna give you a good example. Let's say you struggle with high blood pressure, and it is something that keeps you consistently out of work. So there's a criteria there. Well, that could qualify you to get your loans forgiven because you cannot work. So the key here, if you have a disability and you're listening and you're like, my disability stops me from having a year full of consistent work. I'm having to take PTO. I'm having to use FMLA. Then you could be eligible for forgiveness.
Mm. I did not know that.
Mhm.
Especially when it comes to student loans and having like different health issues or anything
Mhm.
like that. I had no clue.
Yeah.
Wow. Thank you for that.
Mhm.
So, what are some of the common misconceptions about student loan forgiveness that you encounter in your work?
That people are not eligible. You know, people in this season, they don't do it as much, but people want to go back and forth with you and be the expert. It's weird. I tried for that program in 2015. They told me no. Well, today is 2024. Try again. There's been
Right.
so many changes. And it's like, I can't explain it. And I don't want to sound weird, but people are jaded by trying it and had gotten denied originally.
Mm.
Try again. Do the paperwork again. Get some professional help to review the paperwork and tell you where you messed up. Because the public service loan forgiveness program is one of the ones that people have tried and didn't succeed with forgiveness because the form was really confusing, or you missed one thing on the form. And now they said, well, they don't really say no, they don't say anything. And then you say, well, I'm not eligible. No, you are. We just have to redo the form, and maybe you should put this instead of that. So I find that a lot of people are not informed about the latest changes, and they're living in yesterday's woes. And then they want to go back and forth. And truly, not to be funny, they really don't want to like apply again. I had
Mhm.
this lady, God bless her, $200,000 forgiven. When I tell you she was DMing me for weeks as to why it just would not work for her. I'm gonna let you know The Spirit of the Lord took over that DM conversation because I was about to block her, okay? But the Lord said not
Right.
to block her because she was just doing the most. And I said, ma'am, this is my last message to you. This wasn't even a paid situation, by the way. Please just apply. 2, 3 months later, she went to an event, flew to an event that I was speaking at just to give me a hug. She said, I'm so glad you didn't ignore me. Girl, I got forgiven. She could have been forgiven 6 months ago. So it's sometimes helping people get out their own way
Yeah.
about things we know that are working in terms of forgiveness.
Yes, that is so true. But it's like the mindset we have sometimes, and a lot of people, they lose their faith because it's like, I tried and I tried and I tried, and they
Yeah.
like, I'm just over it. But it's like we have to get in a mindset for us to just keep going and don't give up,
Yes.
because one day we will get that yes or forgiven. It's
Hmm.
it's needed bad, but it's like that, man.
Yeah. I try to love everybody through the Lord. But now it's getting weird. If you don't put this application in,
I don't blame you. So, for those that are looking to manage their debt while pursuing other financial goals, what advice would you offer for balancing these responsibilities?
just don't ignore the student loan. We're back into repayment. They're garnishing wages, taxes. This is not pandemic times. Don't ignore it. Get on a payment plan that could work for you. Find something affordable that works for you. Speak up and let your lender know if you're having any hardship. But the challenge here is that student loan lives in the middle of everything. Good credit,
Mhm.
home buying, and so these are big things, right? And so you just can't ignore it. And then when you go try to do these things or go around it, it always shows up. So we just try to tell people, let's not skip these things. Um when we think about getting our financial house in order, we want to prioritize the things that will help us, live life more abundantly and live life on purpose quicker, faster, sooner. Well, what do I mean by that? You want to be wise in how you manage money. You gotta really sometimes handle some internal stuff because your shopping or your whimsicalness with money is really sometimes a result of something deeper. So I tell people a lot of times, you think about your shopping habits. Let's say, and I know we're talking to women mostly on this podcast, so I'm going there for a reason. You just shop. Something's not fulfilled in your life. What's going on? Like, what
Mhm.
are we trying to cover up here? Now, I know we are also right now in a sensationalized time with social media. So be careful. You're watching the girls buy Amazon all day. You know how they come up with the Amazon outfits? It's getting bad now that they got people that look like you and I, our shape, our color, and then you be like, oh, look at Tommy. Tommy got the same shape as me. I like how that fit her. Now you want a Target binge, an Amazon binge. So the thing is, these big brands are catching on and they're coming directly to your phone, directly to your feed, directly talking to your language. The ads and the commercials, everything's mostly at night when you make the most poorest financial decisions. They know to hit you hard at night. So I'm saying all this stuff because you got to be aware of the psychology of money. I recommend a book. You Are a Badass with Money. Have you ever heard of that book?
Yes, I love that book.
Yeah. Audit your relationship. And then my other one, I'm building a relationship with her as a mentor, Rachel Rogers. We Should All Be Millionaires. These are two books that I think every woman should read and reread them, because the reality is, um, we've got to address our lack of knowledge with money. And I don't know who we're necessarily speaking to, but when I think about myself, I had to learn a lot of these things about how to manage the credit card, understanding interest. Okay, the rich borrow and take loans off of their assets, not sell the assets. So I have assets myself, and I was about to do a poor decision And then my girlfriend was like, "No, girl, you're gonna go get you a HELOC loan. You write off that interest of the loan." And I'm like, "Oh yeah, I did read that." But that type of stuff you got to keep listening to and keep ingraining yourself in that conversation, because it's no reason why anyone listening to this podcast should not live abundantly and should not be making the money they want to make. And then the last thing I would say is everybody here in the middle of their goals needs to know the goal. What do I mean by
Mhm.
that? You need to know, ask yourself as you're listening to this podcast, how much money makes me happy in a month? Like, what's happy look like in terms of a number? Am I happy with 10,000 a month? Am I happy with 20,000 a month? Am I happy at 50, 100, 200? I don't know that number. For you, I know my number because I've made a lot and I've made a little. And by having that range, I'm like, I like this number. This number take home feels really, really good to me. I can travel. I can have my accommodations how I want them. I can eat what I want to eat. I can be a good giver. I can, and that makes me happy. People have to figure out what's making them happy, if that makes sense.
Yes, it makes a lot of sense. So,
Mhm.
can you explain the types of loan repayment plans available and how borrowers can determine which is best for them?
Well, the safe plan right now is on hold. I don't know when it's coming back. They don't know either. It's just like an indefinite hold. That was supposed to be the best plan ever.
Oh
Affordable,
man.
no interest accruing. So then we lost a good plan called the repay plan. If you have newer loans, you should look into a plan called Pay, PAYE. And then there is the income based repayment plan, which is what most people are opting into right now. It's okay. The pay plan, would be, I would say, the most preferred plan, but it would have to be for loans, I believe, that were created. I have to double check these numbers. I want to say after 2014. But if you have loans that are older than that, you want to look into the IBR plan. That will allow your repayment to be based off of 15% of your discretionary income. And then if you have high income, you can look at what's called extended graduated plans. And that allows you to break up your payments over a longer period of time. Uh, your income doesn't matter. So you just need to figure out what works best for you and your budget. If you go to studentaid.gov under loan repayment, you can play with the repayment calculator before submitting any official documentation. And you can say, okay, yeah, I can live here at this payment. This will work for me.
Okay. So your approach has been described as no fluff. Can we talk
Mm,
about why this style works for your clients and how it's
yeah.
helped your connect with so many people?
Well, like I said, I love everybody through the Lord's. And I think that I have a really amazing gift of being, just honest with people, but not in a way that can hurt anybody's feelings or make them feel bad. But what we're not going to do is go around the mulberry bush about this student loan debt. Like, okay, you got it. I never asked somebody like, how you get 970. I'm not doing that. So I'm just saying, okay, 970,000. These are your options. This is what we would do. And then people will go, well, I don't know, because I just feel like, okay, I let them talk it out, right? And then I remind them this is a federal debt owed. You can be a participant or they can enforce for you. Enforcing for you looks like, okay, now I'm going to take her taxes. I'm going to go into her paycheck. So, do we want to be a participant or do we want to, you know, allow the government to just take things over? So, anyway, I say all that
Mm,
to say it's my job to be very blunt and upfront about what it is and what it isn't, because I know that your home is on the line, your
mm,
credit score is on the line, future opportunities on the line. We could get really real. Some of the ladies listening are single. They man is on the line. A financially astute man wants a financially astute woman. You can't come janky and messy with your stuff, and you got loans overdue, and you in default and all this other stuff, and you about to marry this good man. No, Savannah. Mm-mm. So you just have to start having these hard conversations with self, because you will attract who you become.
mm,
So when I meet a lot of women that's in their 30s and 40s, it's like we gotta clean some stuff up because we're behind statistically on hitting some goals, whether that be personal or some professional goals. The student loan debt shows up in every area. And then let's say the student loan go bad. Now you can't get access to certain clearances, certain bank accounts. I mean, it's a mess. So we want to prevent that before those things happen.
Yes. And I've never personally purchased a home. I was blessed to get a home from my mother,
Amen.
but I'll see how they implement your loan payments within your mortgage loan when you
Yes.
purchase a home. And I'm like, that is just crazy.
Yeah. Well, the reality is, it looks like you already got a mortgage. Okay. So they're already trying to figure out. And I think that people got to remember, like, we're not too far removed from some laws being passed about equal rights and equality for home buying. That still
Mhm.
shows up at the table. So you being a black woman coming to the table to buy a home, you already got invisible strikes against you. Now you got this student loan debt. Now your credit is so so. You don't really have a deposit. It's just so much stuff. And the greatest thing you could do is be a homeowner, a landowner. And that keeps you out of the market. Now you're a forever renter, right? So
Mhm.
these are the conversations we have to have, the hard conversations we're having with our clients and with our folks, because everybody just thinks that, I don't want to say they think it's a game or anything, but it's really
Yeah.
cute and until you're trying to get something under your belt for yourself and you keep being told no.
Mhm. So
Mhm.
many borrowers feel that they are like extremely overwhelmed for like different loans and stuff. Can you
Mhm.
explain to them the different loan types as far as federal, private, subsidized, unsubsidized? And can you break
Mhm.
down what borrowers need to know about each type and how it impact repayment?
So there are two major types. There's a federal and a private loan. So we'll start with federal. So federal, you have an unsubsidized and a subsidized loan. An unsubsidized says, hey, interest is accruing no matter what from the origination of the loan. A subsidized loan, interest is accruing while in repayment. But if you were in school or you had some type of what we call economic deferment because of finances, that interest is on hold, everything's protected, not being billed. Right now, there's an administrative forbearance in place. So as long as you have a direct loan and you were originally in the SAVE plan, you're not accruing any interest on these loans while they kind of work and sort things out. Private loans are the bane of our existence. Some people took them out when they went to like HBCUs or private institutions. That private loan debt, you got to treat like it's on fire and pay it off and get rid of it quickly. There's no help, there's no forbearance coming for that private loan. That private loan is not protected federally. It's not, there's not many clause of collection practices in terms of protection that can be implemented. So you really don't want to keep a private loan around too long. You want to pay it off like it's on fire. And then when we think about just in terms of repayment options, you kind of are at the mercy of the lender when it comes to private loan debt because they can set the bar, set the tone, set the rules for repayment.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, the private loan debt might be one of the worst. I know that with home buying recently, there were some changes made. You could, depending on how big the private loan was in the home purchase, you could put the two together and just have a
Mhm.
mortgage and pay off your private loan. So look into that. Have that conversation with the mortgage lender. That might be a good idea too. Um, but yeah, it private loans. If you're listening and you're thinking about, I want to take out a loan, nobody is recommending a private loan because they're really difficult to work with after graduation.
Wow. That's a lot. That's a
Yeah,
lot. Whew. And what's so crazy? You really don't be thinking about what you're taking out until you
right.
have to later pay it. But
Hmm.
it's like you need your education, you need to do these different things. What changes would you like to see when it comes to us going to college to get our education and everything and not
Yeah.
being able to do all of that?
So I have a saying that goes borrowing determination equals career compensation. Only borrow what you're estimated to make back in your first year. So if I'm going to borrow 80,000, I got to go into a field that's going to pay me 80,000 or more in that first year. But I don't want to borrow 80,000 and study the butterflies. Now, God bless the butterflies. Unless there's an amazing job I don't know about with these butterflies, why would we spend that much money on an investment that wouldn't pay itself back? So sometimes our students are emotionally driven or looking to go into liberal arts because it's not as taxing like science and math. But again, understanding the college costs and the playing field, it's $1 billion industry. How about we only, how do I put it? How about we only go to school for something that matters in terms of return on investment? I'm all for you studying and playing with the butterflies, but you got to do that at the library and YouTube University. Okay, you if you don't have disposable income to throw away when going to school. Like for example, my bachelor's degree was in anthropology. Do you know what that is?
No, I don't.
Nobody knows. But luckily, it was paid by a full ride scholarship. But I said to myself, I'm going to have to pull out all my skills. Luckily, I knew I had the gift of sales. And I sold people on hiring me my first like 2 jobs. And I knew that if I could just do a good job at these jobs, I could get whatever job I want. I just needed to say that I had a bachelor's degree. But in hindsight, was that probably the most reasonable or fruitful thing to do? No, because I don't know you personally to say, oh, your personality will get you far, will get you through the door. Most people don't have that type of personality when they can, sell water back to the ocean. I told people in my job interview, they said, well, with an anthropology degree, why should we hire you? I said, it's a great question. I said, anthropology is the study of people and cultures. And what I've been able to do, and I don't know, girl, I remember answering it like that. And then the guy looked at me, he took off his glasses, he said, you're going to be great at this job. You've got the RWS. That's all I needed to know. I got hired. So, but everybody doesn't have skill sets that
Yeah.
can lend to, when you have a degree that nobody in the world knows what it is. Of course, you may have heard of an anthropologist before, but do we really truly know what they do? It was just my favorite class and discipline to study, and I just wanted to graduate so bad. But in hindsight, it probably would have been more fruitful to go for a discipline or a study that could have yielded me more income coming out of college.
I can see that.
Yeah, yes.
So for borrowers and default or delinquency,
Mhm.
what are the first steps should they take to get back on track?
So it changed recently. There used to be a program called Fresh Start people could take advantage of. That's no longer around. So now we're thinking of what we call default rehabilitation and consolidation. Default rehabilitation says, let's see what you make. These are the loans that are in default. How much can you afford by their mathematical equation and the form that needs to be completed? How much can you afford to pay on these student loans? How much can you afford to pay back? Um, so is this payment going to be $5 a month for 9 months, making sure you make every payment on time, or is it going to be higher? So the defaulted loan game is just no joke because default comes first, then garnishment. And so you're one step closer to having your taxes and your pay uh, levied as a result.
Mm. So tell me this. I'm gonna give you a scenario. So
Mhm.
I'm coming in as your client and I am like 130,000 in debt, student loans.
Mhm.
Um at this current moment, I haven't made any payments or anything, but um I'm trying to get everything together. What is something that you can do to help me either get on track or get rid of the student loans?
Well, if you're behind or in default, we can help people get out of default um, because we would help them navigate the rehabilitation program. If it's just that these loans are too expensive and you're not in default, you're in good standing, then let us do an income driven repayment plan with you and see what your more affordable options are. And when we talk about forgiveness, what program could we get you qualified for to get forgiven for? That makes a big difference too. Now, again, I tell people all the time, we're not genies or we don't perform magic tricks, but we do know a lot. And so we may know some loopholes or some give you some suggestions to navigate your debt a little easier, to come from up under it. A lot of it has to do with strategy and just being aware that these things are available.
Okay, so another scenario, they had that website where you could apply to get your student loans forgiven. I
Hmm.
think it was like a year or 2 years
Hmm.
ago. So a lot of people have filled that out, but a lot of them have a letter and they haven't been able to see that the student loans end up coming off their credit or just and they remove them. So what is it something that you can do to help them be able to succeed and get it off of their credit and utilize the letter of what it was supposed to do?
So there's two type of letters. You have to make sure you have the one I'm speaking to. The first one was Biden loan forgiveness, where people were supposed to get like 10 or 20,000. So that got canceled. That's no longer coming. Then there was another round of forgiveness that is still active and eligible, but it's on hold. So until Biden loan forgiveness comes off hold, there's nothing anybody can do. So if you did not get forgiven through PSLF or borrower's defense, then you have to wait. If you were forgiven under one of those two, it should take about 60 days to show on your credit. But if it's Biden's program, the revamp program, then we're waiting for we're waiting for the ban to be lifted off of Biden's case.
Okay. So can you speak to the mental health aspect of carrying large loan debt and what advice do you have for borrowers struggling with the anxiety of repayment?
Yeah, it's a very real thing. A lot of problems can be cured by money, maybe 90% of them, and 10% a good therapist can help. So, what I tell people all the time is that student loan debt can really put you in a headspace because of how it makes you feel about yourself, the opportunities it may block or prevent, and the shame and embarrassment. But the reality is, don't be ashamed, don't be embarrassed. There are way more people that owe high five and six figure numbers than they do not. So you're amongst good company, right? But the other thing is you got to remember that you're taking time to empower yourself to learn. On our platform, the Student Loan Doctor, they could find us on Instagram in this example. We teach and put out so much content.
That's
That's it.
great.
That's all we do. And so it's like you got to be able to tap in and get that help and support based off of what we're sharing and putting out there. But a lot of people also um, are skeptical.
Yeah.
I don't want to say lazy. They just don't get around to it. Or the problem is like this can't be that. This is not that season. This is the season to be tuned in and checking everything out that you believe could be eligible for you.
Yes, for sure. So, how can parents and families better prepare their children to avoid overwhelming student debt, even if they aren't in a position to fully fund their education?
Yeah, I think that parents should implement something called Scholarship Sunday. And this is where you get really into the nitty gritty with your students that are sophomores, juniors, and seniors about the college applying process, the cost of college. Don't sugarcoat stuff. Like, tell your kids what this cost would be. Can mommy and daddy, however, afford that? Yes or no? What do scholarships look like? You want to go to this school? Okay, these are the scholarships you're going to need to be trying to apply for. We have to set the tone high with expectations ahead of time. If you didn't already, it's never too late to reset them because what is happening is there's all of this loan forgiveness talk, but no one's taking action or applying on it.
Right.
And
Yeah.
that's weird. But if you knew ahead of time what you should know, then you would come out like, all right, I'm gonna graduate, work here for a few years, work here, get my 10 years of credit, get my loans forgiven. People need to have more strategy.
Yes, they do. They do. So
Hmm.
looking ahead, what's your vision for the student loan doctor, and how do you hope to impact financial landscape for the future generations?
Yeah, we're already living in our wildest dream, which is we are building out a B2B where we're training others to do the work that we do. So we already got about 300 people trained. Our students are making anywhere from 60K in 60 days. And they're just excited because it's life changing and it's, you know, something that if understood and tackled correctly, as a community, the African American community, of the women community, we would thrive. So I'm really, really proud of how we're growing that out and bringing others in to be experts, because there's no such thing in this field as competition, only collaboration. There's 46 million people that need this help. Nobody is competing for the 46 million people that need help. So I don't care if I train 1,000 people, they're all going to talk and connect to different people. Um, so we're doing that. That's been really exciting. And just being more professionally outside, speaking engagements, events, things of that nature, because I know that people like you, they will learn to trust you.
Yes. That trust is big
Mhm.
because, a lot of people are burnt out from spending their money on services and they're not seeing results. And just dealing with the wrong people sometimes. And sometimes we have to at least just like you said, try.
Yeah,
You can't give up on something that you want to make your future better. It's
right.
so important. It really
Yeah.
is.
Yeah, it's an exciting time to um, understand all of this student loan stuff because of the elections, and just holding people to what they said they were going to do once they were elected is a big deal too.
Yeah, it definitely is. So how can people get in contact with you and utilize the services from your company?
Yeah, so Instagram is where we have the most fun, probably the most engaging of all the platforms, and we have like a little private subscriber chat that's free. So the Instagram is the Student Loan Doctor. Our website is doctorpleasehelpme.com. We put up different blog posts, and you can always request a discovery call that way. Um, and I don't know, we're kind of everywhere we need to be right now. So I would say just kind of join in to a free class that we have. The next one's coming up like on a Thursday evening. But we just try to do as much as possible to make people feel comfortable moving the needle, having a different conversation about their loans.
Wow. So besides the one class coming up, do you have any other classes or workshops coming up?
Let me see. No, I think just right now we're focusing on the free class for student loans because we're just waiting to see kind of what happens with election, which
Okay.
way we need to pivot the conversation. So I'm sure after whatever happens, there'll be more classes. But I would say the main thing is let's just get under our belt who's going to be our leader so we can go from there.
Okay, that's understandable. So, what's one piece of advice that you wish every borrower knew before they actually took out their first loan?
I would say just making sure you have a plan for the money, making sure that you're not just trying to take out refund checks and unnecessarily spend and ball so hard. Like, just have a purpose for it. That's my story. I'm not judging nobody. But what is the student loan going to help me do with my life? What's the return on investment is the question. So that's what it comes down to in this season.
Wow. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Lewis. I really appreciate you and your informative information. I pray that everyone listening will actually come for your services, because a lot of people are struggling. They don't have the resources or anything or know who to come to. But now y'all have no excuse. Y'all can go right to Dr. Lewis and she will get you all the way together. She's a testimony of herself for sure.
Yes,
And
yes,
thank
yes. We
you.
are so excited to be here today. Looking forward to connecting to everyone. And, let's just see what happens after elections. And then we really will go from there. We'll have a game plan from that point.
Yes, for sure. So thank you everyone for tuning in to Life Heard Podcast. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube and listen on audio on all major platforms. Thank you and have a good night.
Welcome to Life Her Podcast, the podcast that guides you from the 9 to 5 grind to the freedom of your own path. Discover how to conquer life's challenges while pursuing your passions with unwavering faith. Because being an entrepreneur is not easy. So let's get to it.